Good. I don't know what that was, but hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Deadman Walking 55 here. Welcome to all you from the YouTube land and the wonderful world of Twitch. Hey, we appreciate everybody that's going to watch us live, lurk, catch us later, whatever the case may be. And, we're just going to have fun talking some spring football. One of the things I hope that you do is that even, we're going to be talking specifically about the new professional league, the XFL. But, hope if you have general football questions, just let us know. Feel free. We'll have conversation and all that. And just, share your questions with us. We love to answer football as much as we can. Things like that. So feel free to share and have fun with us. Let me bring in my great co-host, Woopah Troopah. Hey, Woopah.
Hello. Sorry, I was.
Oh, no problem. Yeah. How are you doing tonight, and how's the internet been acting lately?
Doing well. I think the internet's been doing good. I guess we'll find out today.
Yeah, I know. And it's kind of hard having a football show on the day of March Madness. So, take a little detour for a minute. What have you thought about today's action?
It's been pretty good. I sadly have not been able to watch a lot of it because my work is lame, but I've been following a lot of it, having the play-by-plays up and such, and a lot of it's been pretty eventful. So a lot of surprises, which is always good. Not necessarily the surprises that I predicted, but I'll take it.
Well, that definitely, yes. A couple of them already with Furman, which we talked about. We were pointing out that they're hot and everything. And
Brian, props to Brian Hepburn for he predicted it when we didn't, but I mean,
no, I know, because I know I'd have picked it and they would have lost. Just it happens all the time that way. Then Princeton, that's the one that kicks me for not saying, but it just looked like too obvious pick. And everybody that I've heard on TV that has watched Arizona said this was not the same Arizona team that played today.
Yeah, there's so much. So many close calls. And I think with both of these, obviously we picked all these games the same so far. And with both the teams that lost today, we didn't have them making it past the second round. So we knew what was up with them, but we didn't predict them to lose this quickly.
No, definitely not. No, I didn't. I never liked them in the tournament, even though the years they won many years ago, they did win I think one, maybe two tournaments, but they still not the same. They're usually a tournament dog. So, but hey, so like Virginia's a tournament dog too, except for the 1 year they did manage to win the national title. So, go figure that. So, all right. Well, hey, we've got 4 people watching us. If you're on Twitch, make sure you follow us there. If you're on the YouTube side, like the video, subscribe. Hope to, like I said, have you chat with us along about football. We're going to look at the XFL and the Spring League in more detail tonight. We're going to cover 2 weeks of action and preview for next week. But first, let me say hello to a few people that are out here. And the great polar bear himself, Snortopoopas Q. Burr. Hello, humans and other critters. Great to see you, Snortopoopas, as always. And we've got, so far, also the lovely Mrs. Dadman Walking, who is lurking while pressing my suit for tomorrow and shirt. So, hey, got to look good when you go for an interview. And, promotional thing, that type of thing, So, yeah. Do I really? You want it. You like the money, but it's all fun. All righty. Well, Woopah, we got. Where do we stand now currently in the XFL? Let me bring up this. Woopah did this here. He's previewing us and made his own edit to Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Because, okay, Woopah, where do we go from here? Where are we standing? And I'll let you take it away.
Yeah. So we first. Oops. Okay, sorry, I double check. I thought I clicked off of something. We've got, so since we skipped last week, we got the week 3 results. This is the first week of the game. At the time, two teams looking for their first win. The Seattle Sea Dragons versus the Vegas Vipers ended up in a good score with a walk-off touchdown by Josh Gordon. You can see had 6 catches for 118 yards and 2 touchdowns, including the game winner. Morgan Ellison also became the first running back who had over 100 yards in a game on 17 rushes. That's pretty good. Ben DiNucci, the former Dallas Cowboy, had I say a really good game. It's kind of a mixed bag because, 377 passing yards and 4 touchdowns is great, but 1 interception and 2 fumbles is not so great. You had Brett Hundley on the Vipers. He came in, I believe this was the first drive that Luis Perez had, who was the original starting quarterback, didn't go well. He only completed 1 of 5 passes, so they put Brett Hundley in. He did complete less than 50% of his passes, but no turnovers, and he led the team in rushing yards and had 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown, so he did pretty well. He gave the team life and had him almost getting a win, but in the end fell a little short to the Sea Dragons, who got their first win, and the Vipers fell to 0-3.
Which looked good that there's actually points scored in this game. I remember the Sea Dragons had that close loss to St. Louis.
Week 3 was probably one of the most exciting weeks so far, I'd say. But,
yeah, definitely sounds pretty good. Of course, running quarterbacks, looking at it, 6 carries, 8 carries for. Looks like they have more of the mobile running type quarterbacks, but in this case, 37 pass attempts and 28 pass attempts. I wouldn't say they're necessarily a run first type of offense, though.
Yep. The Sea Dragons have aired it out a lot lately. The Vipers are kind of a little bit more mixed, but in the end, every team but one passes more than they throw, or pass more than they run. So we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
So the next game, the sad game of the week. I forgot to edit something short of, but Battlehawks fell to the DC Defenders by 1 score. The first loss of the year for the Battlehawks.
Wow, and they gave up 34 points. I mean, DC actually scored this week.
The defense was rough, but the offense was on fire. AJ McCarron played fairly well, kind of a mixed bag, just like DiNucci. 4 passing touchdowns, which up to this point it only happened once in the league, but 2 interceptions and 1 fumble. One of those interceptions was by Michael Joseph. You can see on the DC Defenders side, the St. Louis running back slipped on a route. If he hadn't slipped, it was probably a short catch. Instead, he slips. Michael Joseph grabs it, and there's no one to tackle him for a 41-yard touchdown, which really ended up possibly being the difference, which stinks because it's not A.J. McCarron's fault, but is big on the day. Hakeem Butler had a really big day. 9 catches, 105 yards, and a big touchdown. He caught the ball, was hit immedly, and he very much won the battle. So he got hit. The defender fell to the ground trying to hold on to his legs, and Hakeem Butler looked like he barely got touched. It was a big boy touchdown. And Darius Shepard here, he was a wide receiver mostly, though. 5 catches for 51 yards is pretty good, but mostly in his 5 kick returns, he had 190 return yards, including a 72-yarder, which is the longest XFL kick return this year. He broke off another one, I think, for 40 or 50 yards. He was really doing a great job returning and helped a lot. Jordan Teamu, the former Battlehawks quarterback in 2020, 11 for 20 yards. 11 for 20, not great, but 196 passing yards, and funny enough, this is his first passing touchdown of the season.
Oh wow, yeah, because I remember that team had at one point was no touchdowns and 3 or 4 picks.
Yep.
They really didn't even throw the ball. It was like truly run heavy, run dominant.
Mm-hmm. When their quarterback usually much more mobile, he did have 10 carries, but only 22 yards. Did get a rushing touchdown. Did get a fumble that almost cost the DC the game. But the big thing, you don't usually see key players, but Daniel Whalen, I put him here, the punter. 4 punts for 53.5 average.
Wow, that's a huge average.
Yeah, and 61 longest. And the thing is, this doesn't take into account he had a punt that I think it was like 73 yards. But it was a perfect punt. It was rolling real slow. It was going to be at the 1 yard line, but the DC punt team just didn't get down quick enough, and it ended up barely going into the end zone. But it was not his fault. He did everything that he needed to. Just some of the punt return team didn't hustle as quick as they should. So great stat line, and it should have been even better. But so
let me say hi to Brian. Hey, Brian.
Hey,
go
Brian.
Furman. We talked about that earlier. Yeah, that stinks when that happens. So many times when punters, and the return teams either over pursue, don't get down fast enough, and then that would have been a real real put them back on the back line, backs to the wall if they could have downed it there. But dang, 71-yard punt. Wow, that's something.
No, it was great.
And was it a legitimate kick, or was it one of those that bounced 30 yards?
No, I mean, it didn't go 71 yards in the air, but I think it hit down around the 10-yard line.
So about 10, yeah.
It was.
What I'm talking about. Sometimes somebody may only kick it about 40 yards, then it rolls 20 yards.
But this was about probably a 60-yard punt, and then it rolled a little bit. It was a boot, and I put him down here. I was just watching this game, and it really was. I mean, we didn't get many punt returns at all. A lot of fair catches, and it was just, as a fan, you see him punt, and you're watching the punt in the air. You're like, oh gosh, there's those points you can tell. Well, it's going to be hard to score on this drive, and we still put up 4 touchdowns, but it was just, there was a lot of punts that put us in rough field position, and you could feel like, oh man, this is going to be tough to overcome.
Yeah, it's bad when you have to highlight the punters, though. But still, that's an offensive explosion compared to a lot of the other stuff we've seen.
Oh yeah, this was another big game. This really was fun. This week was good, but the next game we're going to go to was not as fun, as you can see. Battle between the 0-2 Guardians, at the time the 1-1 Renegades, went to a whopping 9-10 score.
I still think they look like Panthers, not gargoyles. But go ahead. Sorry, I keep digressing on that one.
But this was
it's bad. You didn't even highlight the quarterback for.
No, he did not. He didn't do much. It was kind of like, well, he didn't do bad. He didn't do good. So he really wasn't a key player.
You there? Woopah, hey, you still there? All right. Well, hey, not a 10-9 slugfest there is what you could call that in the old days. Of all defensive struggles is what a lot of people would call that. Maybe not really a true defensive struggle. Sometimes they're just bad football games. But
sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. So hey,
okay,
you're back.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
But I was saying, like, yeah, I'll highlight some players if they're bad. And that's why I put Jermaine Martin here. 7 rushes for 9 yards. Jeez. Is pretty rough as the starter, plus 2 lost fumbles. The lack, because if you look, Paxton Lynch did not do too bad. He's been getting better. 219 yards on 19 for 31. 19 completions, 31 attempts. Pretty good. 10 rushes for 43 yards and a rushing touchdown. That's not bad at all.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, he led the team in rushing yards, and the starting running back couldn't get anything going.
Nope,
So
not at all.
when you've got to rely on the quarterback for everything, it's going to be a rough day.
Yeah, and it looks like
And
the defense carried the load for both teams when highlighting them with their tackles and assists. So
yeah, I put
absolutely.
Tyler Vaughn's here just because he got the lone touchdown for the Renegades, but really it was safety Will Hill, a name you're gonna know. Had 10 total tackles plus
Hmm.
half a sack, and the linebacker Darnell Sankey, who I don't know, but he had 8 tackles, a sack, and another tackle for loss. So both of them were really terrorizing the offense that day, and they're probably the big contributors to this win.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But
Yeah.
overall, yeah, you had 2 really nice first games, and then this one.
Uh,
And Renegades go to 2-1, but it's kind of a weak 2-1, which I'll talk about, I'm sure, when we get to week 4.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I know that were one of the statistically weaker offensive teams. So yeah, extra starts misses. So all right. So uh, what's our next game?
Let's see.
And
So
we're in.
next,
Yep. So this
next,
will wrap up week 3, right?
yep.
All right.
So we've got the San Antonio Brahmas versus the Houston Renegades. Brahmas at this point were coming off a huge win, while the Renegades still, still undefeated.
Mm, yeah.
And a lot of this came down to this was another. The Renegades defense did offense did pretty well, but a lot of it was the Brahmas kind of got shut down. You had Jack Cohn 8 for 20 for only 64 passing yards. He had 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and 9 rushes for 27 yards. Not the best. So he really had a rough day, and probably why they didn't fare too well. But on the other side, Brandon Silvers is playing pretty good football, looking like he might be the best quarterback in the league. 278 yards and 3 touchdowns. Did have an interception, but overall on like 66% completion, pretty good. Max Borghi had 74 rushing yards on the ground and 4 catches for 12 yards. So that was very valuable. Always good when you have a running back who can do both. And John Trey Kirkland caught 2 of the 3 passing touchdowns. So there you go. It's kind of the highlight. In the end, even though this was 13-22, it really wasn't a close game. I believe. Let's see. I think this was just they scored a touchdown, 2 field goals. In the end, the Renegades, the second half, I believe, went pretty slowly for the Renegades, but they kind of controlled the game for the most part.
Yeah, it looks like one of those type of games, especially when San Antonio, the only quarterback, the anemic passing, not really a lot of rushing. But yeah, Brandon Silvers looks to be putting on a good season. He's about 2/3, 67% completion, 3 touchdowns, only a pick, over 10 yards of completion. So, and then you see, that's a high output for a running back in this league so far with Max Borghi.
Yeah, very good.
So, and 3-0, they moved to 3-0. So,
yep, 3-0 on the season.
All right.
So that's the end of week 3. Then we get to week 4, and the first one is an absolute blowout.
Wow.
We see the Houston Roughnecks again. Brandon Silvers, you can see 24 for 30, 239 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. That was one thing earlier in the season. He was throwing a lot of touchdowns, but also threw a lot of interceptions. Now he's got the interceptions down and just throwing a lot of touchdowns. He looks great.
2 games in a row. 2 games in a row there with 3 touchdown passes.
Oh, yeah, and that's not super common in this league, so it's huge.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be his third 3-touchdown game as well. You had a big play. I don't know. Did you watch any highlights from this game, Dadman?
No, I was not able to catch the highlights on this one, but
So you'll see probably John Trey Kirkland, wide receiver, but he's got a 1-for-1, 49 passing yards and a passing touchdown. We talked about this in our first episode. You know the double forward pass rule?
Right, right. You can throw the ball forward as long as it's behind the line of scrimmage, and then that player can throw the ball forward again. Yeah.
Yeah, so John Trey Kirkland ran a drag route just behind the line of scrimmage. Brandon Silvers held on to it when the pressure got to him. He threw it to Kirkland, who caught it, looked like he was about to turn upfield. And then before he crossed, stopped and threw to a wide open wide receiver
Wow.
who took it for a 49-yard passing touchdown. And then look, he matched that with 49 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown of his own. So that's huge. And that really was the play of the week. The first time we've seen, I think, a true double forward pass, and it succeeded pretty well. So
Wow, that is pretty dang interesting. But yeah. And it's kind of cool. That's what's neat with this league is that you see different things like that. That's where the rule differences are interesting. It can help make the game a little more exciting. What you'd really want to do is have both teams scoring more points, having a closer game. Get that competitive balance to make the games more entertaining. You know what I mean?
yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
I think, and the Guardians, sadly, I guess they're technically your team. It's down there in Orlando, but the funny thing is, Paxton Lynch, even though he got benched in this game, he's looked pretty good lately. He started, for the first week or two, it was like, well, it's Paxton Lynch. He's not looking great, kind of holding this defense back. But 18 for 30 is not great, but 267 yards on 18 completions is pretty dang good. 2 touchdowns, did have a fumble, but that's a good game for a quarterback. Charleston Rambo had a massive touchdown, but did also have a fumble. The problem is just, there's, you can see there wasn't much to note from the running back game. They don't really have one wide receiver who's particularly good. Cody Latimer's decent, but he's not anything spectacular.
Right.
And overall, the defensively, with 44 points given up, I'm sure someone had a few tackles, but the defense was not putting on a show. I put on the punter just because he got a decent amount of work. He probably did the best out of anyone.
45.6 yards is a heck of an average for a punter in any league.
And that's 2 inside of the 20. So that's, I'm sure that quote unquote dragged down his average, but you put him inside the 20. That's exactly where you want to do as a punter. So
absolutely.
But yeah, it's just,
they only have one job, as the old running back Pete Banaszak said, just kick the ball. That's it. So.
But yeah, just the Guardians fall to 0-4.
It's not good for this league to have teams that bad that are winless, but not just winless, that just don't have an offense. There's no real entertainment draw to it, So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays over the long term. Beyond, and I'm saying the rest of the season, and even into next year, if there's another season.
Yeah, I sure hope there is, but. Yeah, the Guardians. I'm sure they'll see a lot of turnover if the next season happens. But I mean, really, the Guardians are just, hey, here's Paxton Lynch. He's a good player, and he is playing well, but he doesn't have much to work with, and that's the problem. Especially when the defense is not clicking, for sure.
Right.
Then we move to the worst game of the week.
Oh, boy. There was worse than the one that last one. Well, I guess the last game somebody scored a lot of points.
Yeah, the last game it was fun if you're a Houston fan. Not that blowouts are great, but when if a team's putting up 44 points, they're doing something that's going to be fun to watch. When you get 6-15, and first of all, one weird score, but second of all, not great to see.
39 pass attempts and 189 yards.
Oh yeah, it's not good. And he didn't even get much done on the ground. No turnovers, but also no touchdowns. This 6 points is 2 field goals.
Yeah.
I would have tried to put the kicker, but their defense did a good job.
And
it's just the Jack Cohn now, he had a decent first game. Had a great second game, and these last 2 games have been rough. And there's questions: is he gonna start next week? I haven't seen anything saying he will or he won't, but it's definitely up in the air right now.
Yeah, yeah, with especially games starting tomorrow. It's
Game starting today.
tonight. Yeah, that's right, tonight. But yeah, that quickly. Yeah, we'll find out soon enough. But I know that name. I can't remember where he played at college. But one thing I did note is you did not bring Danusi from the Sea Dragons over.
Yeah, it's a little surprising. I kept some of the more. I kind of kept some quarterbacks away more than I usually do. It's because you want to highlight everyone. But Danucci, in all his 3 games, he's had a good amount of turnovers, but he also has a ton of attempts, ton of yards, ton of touchdowns as well, and usually makes a lot of things happen on the ground. This game, not that he did terrible, but it was kind of surprising. And wow, I think he had 1 touchdown, 1 interception, not a lot of rushing yards. It was very un-Danucci like, and that's kind of why I put the San Antonio defense played well. They contained Danucci, which is not easy to do. Luke Barku, I think that's how you say his name. 3 solo, 3 assisted, and he got a sack and an interception, which is not easy to do. And Jordan Williams, who I think is second in the league in tackles, getting 12 tackles, 1 for a loss, so he did pretty well. Morgan Ellison had another good game, and he probably did better than the stats necessarily show, because he had a few carries where he got handed the ball and he was already getting hit. Offensive line just let a guy right through. Hard to fault the running back for that. I mean, he doesn't even have time to set his feet, and he's already getting hit. So even a better game than the stats say. He's the XFL's leading rusher now. And you've got Shakur Pearson, who has been doing great. 8 catches for 76 yards. Very good, dependable. This guy, he had a very good game, but I just think the name's funny. Tuzar Skipper.
Oh, that's awesome.
He had 2 sacks.
Hey, yeah, go ahead.
2 sacks and a forced fumble. So he was doing a lot of work on defense as well.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say 2 very good defensive. It was a good defensive matchup, but also some rough offense as well. It's kind of a mix of both. It wasn't just bad, but the defense did their part, but also the offense did not show up much.
Well, you mentioned about interest of the name. We had one in the college football season. Tennessee Volunteers had a wide receiver named Squirrel White. So we love names.
That's a very
the cooler
very
the better
name.
Exactly. And also, the Arkansas Razorbacks had a linebacker named Bumper Pool.
Bumper Pool.
Yes.
That sounds like a new game.
Yeah, exactly.
Want to go play some Bumper Pool?
Yeah. You'd think. You'd want maybe. Oh, man.
I gotta.
Yeah.
Sorry, while you're mentioned, I went and checked the NCAA basketball scores. It's about halfway through the first quarter. Duke is up 15-2, so that's not looking great.
Well, it was 13-0 a minute ago, but it was still early.
Hey, there you go.
Got to keep the spirit up.
Yeah.
How that
there you
goes.
Go. There's your basketball intermission break.
Hey. Oh, man. All right. So after this game, what do we have next?
Well, we have the Battlehawks home opener.
All right. Woohoo. Yes.
So I was at this game. It was a lot of fun. We kicked their butts 11-24, moved to 3-1, moved Renegades down to 2-2. And the first thing that stands out is Kyle Sloter. He had 1 rush, which was a good rush that he did, but 205 passing yards, 3 interceptions, 1 fumble, 0 touchdowns. That's not going to get it done. I don't know if you're aware.
No.
Not a good game at all.
At least he made the stat line. At least he made it up on your presentation, unlike some of the other quarterbacks.
Well, I think he might have wished he didn't.
205 pass yards, though. That was a lot, but the 3 interceptions and a fumble. I mean,
yeah, it was rough for him. Um,
How was it watching the game in person?
it was a lot of fun. I mean, we had 38,000 people there. That's a spring football record.
Oh wow,
So
that's
not
cool.
just XFL, but any league. Old USFL, uh, AAF, any of those past leagues, and beats all of them. That's pretty big. And
Mm.
yeah, Donald Payne, he did 10 of his tackles were assisted, but still 12 tackles is pretty good. And Josiah Coatney, uh, they did bring a lot of pressure, and 2 tackles for a loss. Not great for the O line. I didn't put AJ McCarron on here. He did have a good game, but not a great game. Um, he did have a terrible interception. He had an open man, Austin Pearl. He was, they were in zone coverage, and Austin Pearl found the perfect part in the zone. Uh, and I know I say, well, all he had to do was this. Not a throw I could make, but I'm also not anywhere near it. I'm not anywhere near sniffing a XFL field. These
That's,
quarterbacks should be able to make this throw, and he overthrew him. Well, not only did he throw it a little behind him, but he overthrew him by about 10 yards right into the hands of a renegade safety. It's like, oh, come on. But
yeah.
and
Well,
also,
input latency showed up. Hello.
hey, what's up, input?
Alrighty. Sorry, I just wanted to say hi real quick.
No problem.
So,
And
as I'm sorry, go ahead. I do have some more questions for you as more about how the game was in person, but go ahead.
I was gonna say also on the Renegade side, I left off the tight end Sal Cannella, who's a former Packer. He's been playing very well. I think he's a tight end. He doesn't get necessarily the flashy stat line. I think this game he had like 5 catches for 30, 40 yards, but he had a couple of very key catches, and just he has very few drops. I think he's catching about 80% of the passes thrown his way. Is very good, very dependable. He doesn't have the eye-popping stat line necessarily, but I think he's going to get a chance in the NFL soon with how he's playing. Especially look at the quarterback play. Not like he's playing with great players. And Kyle Sluter is the second quarterback the Renegades have used, and despite that, he's still the best tight end of the league by a wide margin. So
Right. Right. Well, so for you as a fan, how was this game to watch in person? I mean, was it like an NFL game in a way, or an arena football game? How would you equate it? And I mean, some of these scores get kind of bad, and the statistics may look like they had to be not necessarily great games, but being there with the environment and how they do their game day operations. As a fan, how was this game to watch in person?
it was a lot of fun. I will say I don't think it was as fun as the 2 games I went to in 2020. Not that this was a bad game. It was just mostly this game. When I went to the games in 2020, we had 2 home games. One of them, our first home game, we just kicked butt. It was a blowout, but we're putting up points every time we touch the ball. We're having a big play. That's always very exciting to watch. It's not fun to watch you get blown out, but if you're the
Right.
one kicking the other team's butt, I think that's always enjoyable to watch no matter what, because you're watching your guys kill it. I can
Mm-hmm.
do that all day, any day. And
Yeah.
the second game that we went to in 2020 was just a very close game. Excuse me, it was a very close game. So that was just kind of
How about in
you
terms
know,
of like the music they play, the on field activities, the crowd rate? I mean, does it look like they put any effort into that? Are there
um
things to try to get you excited? Does it work?
they do some stuff. I think there's a lot of interesting things. Well, there's a lot of things. It's like, oh, every team has that. There are some things that they did. They tried to do a certain cheer that I'm like, you're kind of stretching it. Uh, but
Yep.
they also have. They don't do this as much as they did in 2020, and I'd hope they did. But they had like, they had a message from The Rock. Michael, that's cool. I wish he was there in person, but sadly no. Uh, and there's
Mm-hmm.
what am I trying to think of? They had a lot of they put stuff up on the screen in intermissions and times. Uh, they kind of interview some players at like during half times and such, which is very fun to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a big thing after the game, they had a lot of guys, they passed the mic to them, they addressed the fans. That was a lot of fun. So
Yeah,
you get
that
that
reminds me of the
interaction.
XFL. That reminds me of the XFL games where after the game, at least here, they had everybody come on the field, and you could have stuff signed and autographed, meet the players, take pictures and stuff. Even let the kids throw the football around on the carpet a little bit.
No, they
So,
didn't. Well, they do that a bit. If you're a season ticket holder, which I am, but my game wasn't this week. You can either watch. You can kind of hang out with the players in the pregame or the postgame. Uh, I don't know to what extent that is. And I know the pregame is like not that they're going to ignore you, but they won't talk. They won't talk as much because that's before the game.
mm-hmm.
I personally would rather watch the pregame because it's like, oh, you get to watch them in action. But the players are not going to be as chatty because they're focusing on the win after the game, especially
Yeah,
after you win.
we
It's
got
like, yeah,
spirit.
you're
Yes, we
gonna,
do. We got spirit. How about you? Hey, Brian. Thanks.
yeah,
Yeah, a lot of it's prep. They're focusing and stuff like that. I agree with you. It's always better to catch them after the game
mm,
when they're more relaxed and not trying to. And it's not like they ignore you at the beginning, but it's not as in depth, or they may not stop as long and things because they are
yeah.
trying to get ready.
There was some like I know they were throwing the balls to some of the little fans, but to a point, it's like okay, we can do that. We can interact with the fans, but we also got to make sure we're ready. So they
Mm-hmm.
can't do it too much.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
How was the
I think
concessions? Are they
too expensive, but that's
still even for a lower league like this?
yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's a St. Louis thing or just everywhere thing. It's always expensive.
It's probably everywhere because let's gouge. What about parking? Probably what, $20?
$20, that's pretty normal for us.
Oh
We
God,
got
I
we
hate
got
it.
good parking for 20
I
bucks.
want the missus to drop me off downtown at the stadium and come pick me up later because I don't want to even spend I remember when it hit $5, fine, but 10. I mean, I'll be like this, like our minor league baseball team. They're minor leagues, and this is not the NFL. It's like they shouldn't get the same rate that they get, whether it's concessions or parking, that they do like for the NFL games. So,
hmm
but that's just a me thing, the cheapskate coming out and want to save a little bit of money.
No, it gets expensive. I guess I'm not happy about paying $20, but at this point now, it's kind of I haven't gone anywhere where it's less than $20 really, unless you really want to hike, which
Yeah.
sometimes I do, but this time I did not.
Anymore. As long as I can get a drink, I'm fine. I don't need all the other stuff. So
I've gotten to the point because the lines are crazy long, and I hate waiting in concession lines because it's like, man, am I gonna miss something? Are they doing something
uh-huh.
on the field?
Yeah, I agree with
So
you.
I tend to just hit up the bar to start the game. Before I go into the stadium, uh,
Yeah.
get my fill. First of all, it's cheaper, and then
Yeah.
you feel great. And by the time the fourth quarter rolls around, you start to sober up, and then you're good to drive home. So,
See, I like that. Well, see, I don't drink alcohol, so it's just
oh, okay.
Coke and Pepsi and stuff like that. But I like to get my drinks there. But the problem is I'll go between timeouts, or I'll go somewhere between in the quarters so that I can try to avoid the halftime line or the things like that. I I just but you know what is kind of crazy these days is, okay, this is gonna sound weird and odd, so it's just Dad Man here, so chalk it up to the channel and me. The men's rooms are getting longer lines these days. The damn men's room bathrooms are like out the door at times, and it's
Oh,
crazy. It's crazy.
it wasn't too bad this time, but I know I've gone to a lot of Cardinals games where you go between the innings and you're like, oh my goodness. And the thing is, it's crazy because it's not like the lines aren't too bad, but it'll be like, dude, you know, we've got 20, 30 stalls and such. Not stalls, but
Yeah.
we've got plenty of room, and that's still packed. Holy
Well,
cow!
you know what normally happens is that the women come over to the men's room, and I kind of don't blame them
Uh,
sometimes, but it's like, well, no, not now, but it used to be that able. I mean, there was enough space, you could have done that, but now it's like the men back out. That's anyway, and
well,
Brian,
what it always annoys me is once you go too far,
yeah,
like
you
you're
never
like, oh
get
yeah,
back.
you can come in, and then you let somebody in, and like, well, now both these restaurants have lines. You
Yeah,
screwed it up, guys.
I know. It's like trying to be gentlemen, but hey, Brian says that he takes light rail or BART to most games. Only the soccer stadium is kind of hard to get for public transit, and that's good. That's like, see, our city public transit doesn't exist really. There's a bus system, but it just and a skyway that goes to nowhere. It's been a joke for 40 years. It just, it's if I go to a game downtown, I try to get on the city bus, and they do park and rides from shuttle lots. So and let them
Yeah,
deal with it. And
I've
usually it's only about $10. The last time I did it was $10 or less, I think, and it usually got a voucher with it for a drink or something.
yeah, there's a Metro Link in our city. And I'll try to I'll drive to the nearest big stop, and then I'll ride in, and I'll probably do that today, or not today, Saturday,
Right.
because they have another home game that we'll talk about later. But uh, the problem with that is just it's not the safest. Now, usually when you're going on a game day, there's big crowds, no one's going
Yeah.
to do anything,
No.
but it's still a little makes you a little nervous, and also in this case, I went with my dad and my sister, so they
Mm-hmm.
don't want to. When it's just me, it's like I'm an adult, I'm fine. When it's little ones, you kind of like I'll just better be safe than sorry.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Never take stuff for granted. Always be ready. Be prepared to stay with the group. Anything can happen anywhere. So let's see. Wait a second. Oh, the missus broke the steamer. Had to use a traditional iron.
Uh oh.
Darn. And the minor league baseball system stadium charges way too much for parking. Consider that's my opinion, Brian, and I agree with you. And that's what I was saying earlier. Like we got the Jacksonville Jaguars, okay, fine, but when your baseball team shouldn't be getting $10 to $15 a head just to park a dang car. I just, it's wrong, especially when you're wanting people to come pay for overpriced concessions. If you don't charge me out the yin yang for parking, I'll spend more money on the food or drink and food or ice cream. So,
Yeah, that's the
but
thing. I mean, that's why I kind of get confused why they don't do this more. Just
mhm,
because, look, I don't buy concessions in the football, and this is a mostly baseball thing for me.
right,
There's only one time I ever went to a baseball game in recent memory that I didn't get nauseous, and that's because I got a burger. Baseball game. If you're not eating something during the game, what are you doing? Uh,
right,
so I try my hardest to get cheap tickets, and I try my hardest to get cheap parking or take public transport. Um, but concessions, yeah, I'll I'll pay a lot to get good concessions. So it's just
yeah,
like, man, if you said, hey, we'll give you a cheap tickets and we'll give you a cheap parking, but we're gonna charge you $10 for beer, I'd say, well, not a fan. I'd like everything to be cheap, but I'll do that. If you go expensive parking and expensive tickets and expensive concessions, well, I'm
yep,
probably just more likely to not go to a game.
yep. Very likely, very likely. But hey, it's a cost for a trade off.
Mm-hmm.
I want to if I can save money here, I'll spend more money here. And although I will say the missus is right here. If the concessions are good, I'll pay for them. Because when
Mm-hmm.
we're going to arena football, uh, the the local barbecue place, well, it was chain, but it was still local based. They had great barbecue, and they had a thing in the stadium, and they're known for their ribs and stuff. And we would not eat dinner; we would go there just to get the daggum ribs and fries, or chicken wings and fries. And honestly, it was about probably $11, 10, 11, $12 even back then. But honestly, it was portion wise about what they served in the restaurant, and it was good. So you didn't
Yeah.
mind spending it for it. I just don't want to spend $6 for a dang bucket of popcorn that could break your teeth on because of corn unpopped
Right.
kernels, or $6 for a drink that they jab up. That's why we always get no ice in our drinks.
Oh
Can't
yeah,
have ice.
it's a
It's
must.
yeah, it's ridiculous. So
Yeah, and I totally get that. I think that's why a lot of times I go for the baseball games, not like the football games. I know at the football game, my dad said, well, you can get something if you want. I'll pay for it. But I'm like, yeah, partly because there's usually, it seems to be often less downtime, I think, in football. But, they had, hey, here's a cheese pretzel. Here's, pretty much, they say nachos, but it's just, hey, here's some chips and cheese. A lot of generic stuff. Baseball games, you can get a kosher dog, and they're ridiculously priced now, but they're dang good. You can get the loaded nachos. You're getting the jalapenos, the salsa, the meat, the cheese, everything. These are, they're expensive, and I'm not a fan, but I always pay the price because you're getting good stuff. Sadly, XFL, at least our stadium, I don't know if other stadiums, but our stadium doesn't have a particularly super great choice of stuff there.
That's not good because it's not the main. It's not the main stadium like where the Cardinals and or the NFL team used to play, is it?
No, it is where the NFL team used to play. And the thing that I think why I don't mind with the XFL is no, I said you have to be the trade-off. The concession is expensive. I just avoid it. Parking's expensive. I'll pay for the parking. But the tickets, like $50 for each ticket. It's like, it seems like a lot. And it kind of is, but I'm sitting in the 100 section. I'm sitting, not next to the field, but I'm got a great view. The players, a lot of times players came around, and I mean, I wasn't close enough to celebrate with them, but they're right next to you, hyping you up. It's like, oh man, this is great. You get a great view of the stadium for $50. I'll take that. So I think that's that's one positive, at least with the XFL. Parking might be expensive. Parking being expensive is just the city. Sadly, with where they are, it's not the XFL saying you have to park there. It's the city.
Right.
And, hey,
I agree. Especially being in a bigger city. So, wow, they have really good chili cheese dogs and garlic fries. Stay away from the burritos. Oh man, that's cool. Finding good stuff like that. Oh man, we're talking good concession food tonight.
Oh yeah.
So I'm glad you had a good time. I'm glad it worked for you, except when you had to stand in line though. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and the miss right. The parking is regulated by the city, not the stadiums.
Yeah, it's our base. So I think that's just how the city's set up. The dome, both the dome and the Busch Stadium are on kind of the edges of downtown. Right. But the way it's set up is just that the dome is on the north edge of downtown, where everything north of downtown is kind of like, hey, here's condemned buildings. So I think the dome has one parking lot that's like, hey, here's your special tailgate parking lot, which looks to be a lot of fun. But anything north of that, you can't really do. Everything south of that is the city parking. So it's kind of the city saying, hey, this is your parking.
Well, let me say real quick, good night to Snortapoopas. Hey, Snortapoopas, thank you for coming and hanging out with us for a little bit. We did get some food talk in here, some chili dogs and ribs and stuff for you. Hopefully you can have sweet dreams on thinking about food, so. But, yeah, have fun eating those dogs, yes. Thank you. But you have a good night, Snortapoopas. We'll see you again next time. So, okay.
Yeah, the stadium, the baseball stadium is kind of on the south side of the downtown, and the more south you go is kind of where you get to. There's a lot of like dive bars and such, some historic areas. That's where like their big St. Patty's Day parade is. So it's still pretty fun. I definitely enjoy it. It's just it's less, and you'll get some crazy prices. There's a place that's like charges $40 because it's
Wow.
unregulated, but there's also a lot of places that are like, hey, you park here, you're gonna have to walk a while, but you get cheaper. We found a place for the baseball game. It's like, hey, park here. Um, it's only $10, and you get um two tokens for a beer at the place because that it's the parking for the brewery, and they want you to come in and they figure, hey, you're going to use your free token, and then you'll probably buy some more beer there, which they were right, we did. So, but
There you go.
that's the nice thing of with the city stuff. You're probably not going to pay more than 20, but you're probably not also not going to get pay less than 20 with the city park. And if you're willing to walk, you can get some pretty nice seats. Not seats, pretty nice parking
Parking, yeah.
for cheap and some extra perks as well. So
That's yeah. It's funny in our town. There are people that park way out on the edge, and they'll walk a mile to get into the stadium. So me, in that case, that's where I shut up, pay the $20 if I had to. Just a walk's one thing, a workout is a different thing. So, hey, we still got 6 people watching with us tonight. Hey, make sure you follow us on the Twitch side. Hang out with us on the YouTube side. Make sure you like it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. So we're up to 173 subscribers. Woohoo! After a big rush last night. So 27 more to 200 and the magical unicorn soda. So, all right. So where we okay, we completed this game. We heard about your in-house experience. So what?
Yeah, and I'll just add one thing I didn't get to him.
Mm-hmm.
Darius Shepard, he kind of was our third wide receiver for most of the first 2 games, and I talked about him in the week 3 preview. He had 5 catches for 51 yards, and was great as a kick returner. This week he didn't do he was still our main kick returner, but he didn't do a ton. But he led the team in catches, 8 catches, 91 yards, and a wide open touchdown. So it's kind of interesting seeing at the beginning of the year is kind of like, hey, our number 1 guy is Marcel Aitman, number 2 guy Hakeem Butler, and slowly Darius Shepard seems like he might be creeping into that number 1 wide receiver spot.
Yep.
Oh, and did I mention Brian Hill yet? But he was awesome. 2 catches for 26 yards. And 18 carries, 89 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. He's a great running back, which is a big asset to the team.
Mm-hmm. Goes with that passing game. Could be one of the more balanced teams in the league. Mm-hmm. Looking at it, if he can continue to have that kind of rushing production. So,
yeah.
Okay.
All right. So this was the last game of the week. Yeah. This was an interesting game because it's weird. So this game was closer than it looks. The Vegas Vipers, despite being 0-4, do play some competitive games. They're not totally hopeless.
No.
The weird thing is, so they started Brett Huntley last week, and this week was going to be Brett Huntley again. He played 1 drive. He did okay. I think he played 2 drives. The first drive, he had an opening snap fumble, which was pretty rough. Like he mishandled the snap and they lost it. But then he had another drive and he played well. He didn't do anything. You're like, oh wow, he's amazing. But he certainly didn't do bad. And then next thing you know, Luis Perez is in. There was no word if he got injured or not. So it's kind of like, oh, did he get hurt? Like what happened?
Yeah.
Because you're like, well, he didn't really play bad enough to get benched. So he must be hurt. But then if he was hurt, you'd think they'd say, yeah, he got hurt.
Or maybe there was a rotational thing, but if Perez started playing well, then they just stayed with him as a hot hand.
And he did play pretty well, 23 for 32, 280
stat line yards. Looks very good, yeah.
Yeah, pretty good stat line. Both the touchdowns going to, I think they said it's Cinque Sweeney, 3 catches, but 2 of them were touchdowns. So
I'd go with that. That's close enough. I'd go with that.
But the Vipers did make it interesting. DC defenders have a very good second half defense. You had Santos Ramirez, 5 tackles, 1 for loss, and 1 interception. And you'll notice, I'm sure you noticed it by now. The key players, 2 quarterbacks listed for the DC Defenders. It was a very interesting game.
Yep. I remember that from the very first show we talked about. 2 quarterbacks, both of them were primarily running quarterbacks too, which I thought Tamu's stat line was very interesting. It looks like they're actually trying to throw the football now.
Yeah, so they are throwing the football more, and he's doing it better. I think the big thing is like, I don't know if he's had a game where he's thrown the ball more than 20 times. So they, it's not like they're shying away from it anymore, like they kind of were for a while. But they also, they don't rely on him too much to throw it.
Mm-hmm.
And so Teamu here, kind of interesting, 14 for 19, very low amount, but that's decent completion, which he struggled with. 177 yards on 19 passes is pretty good.
Right.
And then the 9 carries for 89 rushing yards. That's fantastic.
Well, like I said, 10 yards of completion. So that's a very good number. I mean, even though he only 14 completions, still, to me, at least 10 yards of completion. That's the big thing to me.
Yeah. And so he was at least efficient on the air and great on the ground.
Yeah.
And then to Eric King, this is the crazy thing. He threw 2 passes, ran 4 times, and had 3 total touchdowns from that. So that's pretty impressive. And so it's interesting, I know you've said it before. There's a very common phrase: if you've got 2 quarterbacks, you got no quarterbacks. But DC's, especially this last week, really mixing up with the 2 quarterbacks, and look, they're 4-0. So it's kind of interesting. It seems to be working for them. I think a lot of it comes down to they're not really I guess you could say they have no quarterback. They just got 2 extra running backs. They're both doing decent throwing the ball, but the big thing is Teamu, 9 carries, 89 rushing yards. That's excellent. And Derek King, only got 8 yards, but 2 rushing touchdowns. I guess they're using him kind of, hey, here's our goal line QB. He is a pretty athletic guy, bigger guy. Right. Maybe they're trusting him. Hey, if we need to get these yards, you can do an option play, and he can force his way into the end zone. So it's working well for him. It's interesting to see how that will be going forward, really.
Yeah. When you play like Houston, one of the better balanced teams.
And you do play. You play. They're in the other division, but you play everyone at least once. So.
Mm-hmm. Wow. All right. Well, that was interesting. I'm kind of they're 4-0 there, but they're actually producing some more points. Not necessarily so one-sided on rushing. They actually did throw the ball this time, so maybe the offense is developing with their defense. And then it looks like you got DC on one side, and then Houston on the other in the lead.
Yeah.
In the lead. So
we can get to the standings here.
Absolutely.
Since you mentioned them, we've got the North and the South. The way playoffs go is it's the top 2 from each division. So in the end, that's what you're looking for. You have in the North, the DC Defenders 4-0, and every one of their games so far, this has been against the division.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Battlehawks 3-1. Their only loss coming away at DC Defenders.
Right.
And the Seattle Sea Dragons now, are 2-2, but on a 2-game win streak. So a little bit of an issue will be that they're 1-2 in the division. Mm-hmm. The division record is the first tiebreaker, so that could hurt them. You got the Vipers at 0-4, but we saw in those 2 games, they're playing competitive games. Both of their games were closer than the third game was close. The 4th game, it was closer than the score said. I can tell you that, but I don't think that they're an excellent team by any means, but I wouldn't say they're like the Guardians, which we'll get to, that just look lost. The Vipers, I think, are a good team. You can't take them for granted. I think they're going to win some in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to the South, you have Houston Roughnecks, who just look dominant. Also only played in the division. Well, I guess I made an error there. That should say 1-0 away, not 0-1.
Yeah.
They haven't lost a game yet.
It's okay. It happens.
But they're looking great. And you have an interesting thing. A lot of these, you have the Houston, not Houston, Arlington Renegades. They're 2-2. Interesting to see if this will carry on. 2-0 at home, 0-2 away. So we'll see if that has anything to do with it.
Yep.
But and I'll say I know the record. I really think that if you compile if you compiled who was the best teams, really, you could probably see all four North teams in the top 5. I know it might be a little bit crazy to assume, but the Renegades did beat the Vipers. It came mostly off offensive miscues. Renegades, not the Renegades. The Renegades. They have a very good defense, but not a great offense. And they in that first game they won despite not scoring an offensive touchdown because they scored 2 defensive touchdowns.
Yep.
And they haven't looked great. They've tried one quarterback. They decided he wasn't working. They went to another quarterback, and you saw his stat line, 4 turnovers. So at this point, it's like, well, who do they go with? Both these quarterbacks aren't getting it done. They don't really have anyone else on the roster, so it's interesting to see with them. The San Antonio Brahmas, 1-3. They, in the first 2 weeks, it looked like they had something good going with Jack Cohn. Now they don't. What I'm wondering is if they're going to make a change here. Let me double check their. Sorry, I'm looking at their. Pretty sure they have a notable backup quarterback that you could see start a game. I wonder. Reed Sinnett. I've heard that Reed Sinnett. Heard that name before. I believe he was in the NFL. I don't think he's played much in the NFL, but I think he was in the NFL. He played for University of San Diego. Yeah, he was on the Dolphins and the Eagles for the bit. Oh, and the Buccaneers. Mostly the Dolphins and the Eagles.
That's a name I've not heard. So
where is this? Oh, he was at one point a finalist for the Walter Payton Award. So he is, he has some sort of, I guess, clout, you'd say. And at this point, Jack Cohn looked like the guy after the first 2 weeks, but now after the last 2 weeks he had, it been very rough. So I don't know if he is the guy anymore. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do.
Right.
Because I don't think they have a bad team. It's just it hasn't been working for them, especially offensively lately. They've got the potential. In week 2, we saw it. I think they probably need to make a change. And then I've already talked about the Guardians, 0-4, and they look awful. I think pretty much week 1 versus the Guardians, the team blew them out. Week 2 versus the Guardians, team blew them out. Week 3 was their closest to almost winning against the Renegades, and that was just a terrible game. And week 4 was a blowout against the Guardians. So it's just at this point, they just don't look good.
No,
I don't know if they will go fully undefeated or if they'll get a win, but right now they're not looking great. So
yeah,
that's the standings. You got any comments or questions there?
Not really. I mean, it's pretty well trending with DC and Houston, and if anything, DC's getting better, more rounded of a team in terms of the offensive production. Because the first week or 2 they looked like a joke of an offense, and they just squeaked out some wins. But not stellar passing numbers, but at least they were good, solid, and effective. And they scored 32 points. It just Houston's been a model of consistency, and then of course our last two place teams are just look hopeless. So not really as any surprise. Nothing has really been changed. It's just the middle of the pack can go either way between middle riders. So
I didn't mean to click my bad.
But that's it. That's about it. Yeah, that's about it. So
yeah, sorry,
we got
I didn't mean
4
to.
games. Oh, no problem. No problem. But that's okay. I really didn't have a lot more to say. But so we've got week 5 preview coming up and 4 games this week.
Yep, 4 games this week, and the reason this show got moved up is this game is tonight. I don't
Hey.
think I'm going to watch much of it because look at the time, 10:30 Eastern is the start. You kidding me?
Normally I would try to, but either with March Madness or having to get up and be on the road 5 to 6 hours tomorrow, I may
Oof.
not. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, hey, I gotta sleep at some point. I'm tired.
You're young. Sleep can come later.
Hey, trust me, I skip out on enough sleep as it is. I can't skip out on this much sleep.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I just put some players to watch and a key factor. That's kind of how I'm gonna start the previews from now on. Hopefully, Brandon Silvers is the big guy for 4-0 Houston Roughnecks and 2-2 Sea Dragons. Who the Sea Dragons are at home and they are on a 2-game win streak, so they've got some momentum.
Mm-hmm.
You got Brandon Silvers, 962 yards through 4 games, 65.2 completion percentage, 10 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. 10 touchdowns lead the league. Now, he is not much of a dual threat. I think he's the only person in the league right now with negative rushing yards.
Okay.
But
well, that's what you expect out of a good throwing quarterback, though.
yeah, I mean, hey, if you're throwing like he is, you don't need the extra dual threat.
Yep.
It's interesting to see what they'll do with their running game. Max Borghi is their main guy, but last week they had another running back step in who was pretty good, but they were also playing the Guardians. So I don't know what kind of spread they'll go with because you've got 2 guys now who are playing very well. Good problem to have, but I'm wondering, are they going to, lean on more of a committee now or go back to kind of going with Max Borghi or go with the new guy? I don't know. But then you see Jontre Kirkland. He's been their leading receiver. 15 catches on 25 targets, 4 receiving touchdowns, and that pass touchdown on the double pass.
Yep.
So I'm sure people are going to watch him a little bit more than they used to.
Yeah. Think about that role too.
Oh yeah, and I think that's what got a lot of people is they threw the pass, he caught it, and the defense, the cornerbacks and safeties started moving up, and next thing you know, there's a guy all alone behind everyone, and he throws it. And I'll tell you, the funny thing was the offensive coordinator went wild in the booth because he called out the play like that, and it worked great. He was celebrating. It was fun to see. You love seeing the passion there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I put here Trent Harris, the linebacker, through 4 weeks has 6 sacks. He is killing it. He is a menace. You really have to watch for him. I think he had 3 of those sacks in one game too, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. So that's a guy you can't leave him alone. You have to game plan around him, especially with a quarterback. Well, I guess that's just the thing. On the other side, there's a quarterback who's very mobile. Even if he, the concern here is, look, 19 carries for 75 rushing yards. He's not a guy who runs first, but he's a guy who can run when you ask him to. And look at his passing yards. 1,119 passing yards is by far the most in the league. And his 68.9% completion percentage is also the most in the league. You look 8 passing touchdowns. He has 4 interceptions and 5 fumbles. He has fumbled a lot.
Yep.
That is a bit of a concern for him. So look, he's a guy, he's going to rack up a lot of yards. He's going to be efficient on his completions, and he can get out of the pocket, but he has made a lot of mistakes.
Ball security.
Yeah,
that's 9 turnovers right there.
Yeah, and that's I think that's part of the reason the Sea Dragons are 2-2, because he's not a bad quarterback. He's played well, but you make so many mistakes like that, it's going to be tough.
Absolutely.
And you've got here's where things get interesting, because the Sea Dragons, you see 2-2, think maybe they're not that good. They've got right here leader in passing yards with 1,119. Morgan Ellison, leader in rushing yards with 239. And Ja'Cory Pearson, leader in catches and receiving yards with 31 catches on 40 targets for 348 yards. Both of these guys have been, all 3 of these guys have been excellent. Obviously, Danucci has his problems, but Ellison and Pearson both no fumbles. Ellison has been running at a good clip. That's a good yards per carry clip. And Ja'Cour Pearson, 75% catches. He's doing great.
Yep.
He's really part of that is just because this Sea Dragons, they have Josh Gordon, who's gone on and off with some games, and you can't really afford to double coverage a lot of these guys because hey, you double coverage Joshua Gordon, Pearson can get the ball. You double coverage Pearson, then Gordon can get the ball. It's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. But hey, all credit to you. This offense is high powered. The defense is okay. I don't think they're bad, but they're not one of the best units in the league. And that's good to my to Woopah's highlight of the game. The key factor is going to be on the ground. You see, Houston Roughnecks have allowed 301 rushing yards on 83 carries, 3.6 yards per carry, third best in the league for defense. Meanwhile, you have the Sea Dragons are certainly good through the air, but the biggest thing is, you got Morgan Ellison is the league's leading rusher, and they're more importantly their rates. Their 4.6 yards per carry is the best in the league. I think the second best is at 4 flat. So they are efficient at running the ball, and I think it's going to be a matter of can they run the ball efficiently like they have. And for most games they do, but they've had some games where they haven't, and if they can keep running efficiently through this defense, plus the passing attack they have, I think it's going to be hard for the Roughnecks. But if the Roughnecks can stop that that rush well, they can maybe focus a little bit more on the pass, and they could be looking at a nice 5-0.
Yeah, it's that type of rushing attack usually results in a lot of third and short. So,
yeah,
which means it's easier to convert third down into first down. So, all right, and so that's tonight's late game tonight. In case anybody can stay up and watch it, wherever it's available. But hey,
it's in Seattle, so if you're on the West Coast, I guess Brian Hepburn, you're on the West Coast, right? You got something to do this today.
Hey, there you go. First fortnight now football.
There you go.
All righty. Well, that's good. That's a good analysis there, Woopah. Thank you.
Yeah. So then we get the next game. We got the rematch. The DC Defenders, and this time they're going to the Dome, to the Battlehawks to take them on 4-0 versus 3-1. I would say if I was a betting man, and I'm not, I'd say this is probably going to be the game of the week. So, excuse me. You've got, as you can see out there, previous meeting, the DC Defenders won 34-28, so that was a good matchup. You've got on one side, look at the quarterbacks versus the running backs. That's kind of the thing. Jordan Te'amu, an interesting stat line, 568 yards passing in 4 games. He started all 4 games and 54.2 completion. I mean, that's just a yikes right there. An interesting thing, 1 passing touchdown, 1 interception. So he's not making a lot of mistakes there, but also not making a lot happen there. But the ground is where he kind of shines. 36 carries for 185 yards. I believe at 185 yards is 4th in the league. So this is a running quarterback you really have to worry about. 2 rushing touchdowns, 3 fumbles is a bit. And you have on the other side, AJ McCarron, 850 passing yards, 65.6% completion percentage, 9 passing touchdowns, 2nd in the league, but 3 interceptions and 3 fumbles. 13 carries for 55 rushing yards. I know he's not exactly a mobile quarterback, but I put that in there because he's had some games where he makes plays happen with his legs. He is not, he's not a mobile guy, but he's not a statue. He can get out, and when he sees that the play is open, he can make it.
Howdy, Castle, by the way. Good to see you.
Hey, Castle, what's up?
All right.
Excuse me. And yeah, so it's interesting. These are 2 very different quarterbacks, but both do things well. You have Abram Smith. He is kind of the bell cow back for DC. 61 carries, 214 yards.
Oh, that's less than 4 yards a carry, though. Ugh.
Yeah, he's not got the rate stats. I can say, though, I left him off just because he has less than half this amount of carries, but Raquel Armstead gets a lot, too. This is a team, and I'll get to that. I guess we can go to that now because it's important. This is a team that just runs the football. Only XFL team with more rushing attempts than passing attempts.
Yep.
They are number one by a pretty wide margin in team rushing yards. But on the flip side, 7th in team passing yards.
Yep.
And what you look at for the Battlehawks, they have had a little bit of a rough defense. And especially they are the second worst team rushing yards allowed. So if they can't stop this rushing attack on a team that loves to run, that's going to be a long day for you. But I will point out that last time they met, Jordan Teamu was bottled up for, I think on 10 carries had 24 rushing yards, but did have a rushing touchdown. So it's hard to say. They did a decent job stopping the run last time and still lost.
Mm-hmm.
How will that fare in this matchup? I don't know, but I think it's worth pointing out that both sides of it. On one hand, St. Louis has stopped the run. On the other, against the DC defenders. On the other hand, they've kind of struggled elsewhere. And also something to point out, I believe that Week 3 matchup was the DC's defenders' best passing game. So, if are they going to sell out and stop the run, but then leave themselves vulnerable to the pass? We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be definitely the key to the game. One thing I think is interesting, I talked about Abram Smith. He's definitely a bell cow, but less than 3 yards a game. You have Brian Hill. He missed week 2, so this is only his 3-week stats. That's why I think it's pretty notable. He has 35 carries for 176 yards and a rushing touchdown, and also 9 catches on 13 targets for 101 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown. And then this is 3 games worth of data. He has almost 100 yards a game all purpose. That's pretty dang good. He's a huge part of this game, a huge part of this team.
Absolutely.
And I kind of put Michael Joseph and Darius Shepard here. Michael Joseph, 14 solo tackles, 3 assisted tackles, and 3 interceptions, 2 of which were pick sixes, 1 of which came against AJ McCarron. So we'll see. He is probably the best cornerback in the league right now and a huge part of this defender's defense. On the flip side, Darius Shepard, as we saw, he's becoming more of a factor in the passing game. I think that's going to be interesting to see. And he is, so far, the best kick returner in the league. I think that matters a lot. If you can get good field position after – I mean, both sides, if just when you're getting the ball back, that'll help a lot. Or, let's say you have a pretty rough defensive drive, DC beats you down, and maybe you're, it happens. What is it? Momentum. It won't swing your way. Everyone's kind of feeling down, and then your guy breaks off a 50-yard return, and suddenly you're right back in it. So I think that matters a lot more than people think, not even just for yards wise, but just to get that momentum going. Good special teams can get you flipped just like that.
Absolutely. And not necessarily by scoring, sometimes flipping the field, getting the ball deeper into the opponent's territory, shorter drives and things like that. So, yeah, definitely. Kick returns can be very important in the flow of a game.
Yeah, so you want to go to the next game then?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So this is going to be a fun one.
No
matter what.
Somebody's got to, well, I was about to say somebody's got to win, but, they could have a tie, can't they, in this league?
I don't think they can. I think the way they set it up, they have semi-college overtime rules. And the reason I say semi is they do it to where instead of every team has a drive, they say every team has a play. I think it's the 10-yard line. Is it the 10-yard line or the 5-yard line?
That's right. The new overtime rules. Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, they had to. Well, somebody will win this week. Yay.
And I think they do it like, hey, each team gets 3. So it's not like it's, you just trade off. They say you get 3 chances. Yeah. Whoever scores more often wins. And if you don't after 3, then it's sudden death, right. Which I think is, I think if you're telling me I'd like a hybrid old college rules You know, I'd just say give me a first and goal at the 10-yard line, and keep trading off. I I'm not a fan of the new college rule of like after what is it, after 2 or 3 overtimes you just
Yeah,
go to extra points. Don't
yeah.
like that.
Or go to 2 point conversions. I
Yeah.
kind of like that idea of 4th and 15.
Oh yeah, the fourth and
Yeah,
15
just
is a lot
one
of fun.
play, and you got to try to make it work. So
I do like the one play. I don't think this is a bad format. I think if they just said, "Hey, first and goal at the 10, you guys keep trading until something happens." Because
yeah,
one of my favorite college games, I was watching this live, but I had a friend who was at the game where I think it was A&M and someone else went 7 overtimes. That was a great game.
A&M and LSU. Yeah,
Yeah,
that made
that was a
records
game.
everywhere.
You're watching that. It's fun. I always think it's silly because
I believe
people are
that's
like,
the
we want
game
to
that
make the
I believe that's the game that caused them to change the rule the next year to go to that you after three, whatever it was, then you had to
yeah,
go for two. Because
it's
at that
just
point they kept
stupid.
going for one. So
I just hate that that's a thing because, and this is the thing they're doing in baseball too, right? Oh, we don't want as many extra inning games. You're you're getting free football. Like,
my thing is, listen, but like that, if because they're talking about rule changes in college to kind of they'll stop the clock under 2 minutes like they've done, but they'll go to the NFL at 2 minutes. I am so tired of them jacking prices up on people under and trying to short and changing the rules to shorten the game under this player safety crap
mhm.
when they won't cut their prices for shortening the games. And my thing is, just shorten it. Let's play 10-minute quarters or let's have 6 inning baseball games. If you're so damn worried about injuries and time, then let's shorten the innings. I mean, you're destroying the tradition of it with these artificial things.
Yeah, and
Sticking in, it's not natural. And you showed the one about baseball the other day. That was friggin' ridiculous. Why was the batter called out when the pitcher didn't even really go on the rubber till like the very last
nah,
second?
it frustrates me.
You know,
I'm pretty ticked off at that
but
rule.
it's hard on those officials. What are they supposed to do? I mean, all those things come into interpretation and all, and
Yeah,
it gets difficult to implement and trying to be consistent sometimes. But
yeah,
it
and
is
I
what it
think
is.
a lot of the stuff like with the baseball with the extra innings, I get some people get tired, but like, hey, you're getting free baseball,
That's what I look at it
and
as.
I think this might be the last time we had this, but I think it was a wild card game that went 16 innings. And it
Mhm.
wasn't, this is playoffs. They didn't have the extra bases in playoffs, which I also think is really dumb because it's like,
Yeah, the runner on second. Yeah, that.
yeah, they don't have to run around second, which is like, I hate that rule, but it's also like, well, we're not going to do it in the playoffs. Why not? Like, are you saying that the rule is bad? And well, it's
Yeah,
weird. It's silly in the
exactly.
playoffs. Well, then it's silly. If it's silly in the playoffs, it's silly in the regular season too.
Yep.
Um, but um, what am I thinking of? The only thing I ever think of that, like, oh, it makes sense to change in the regular season is like a tie rule. They say, hey, you
Yeah.
play. Oh, obviously in the playoffs you can't have a tie, but if it's just like, hey, look, you we gave you a whole extra quarter to do something, and
Yep.
you didn't. But still, what am I
Well, it's kind of
thinking?
like this game. Looking at the stats, looking at everything, looking at the records. It's like, oh God, who's gonna go? Who's gonna even watch it on TV? So
But yeah, like that A&M LSU game, that was uh well, I was gonna say in that 16 inning baseball game, it wasn't because it didn't go 16 innings because the teams were bad. It went 16 innings because even when they're on their, seventh pitcher of the day, that pitcher is dominating the offense. I know some people might not like the low scoring pitching duels, but they were two teams that had good hitters and they were getting bested by a great pitching staff. That's it's a skilled game. I'm sorry
mhm.
people don't like it, but like I don't know what to say besides that's talent there. Um,
Yep.
and then with that LSU A&M game, I know it was long. I'm sure some people were tired, but it didn't go long because these teams sucked. It went long because they offense was just wheeling and dealing. You couldn't stop them. They were pulling plays out all the
Yeah.
time. It was fun. Like, I don't like long games that are boring. These games are not boring. They're long and action packed. That's what you want, right? I went to a game and I got more bang for my buck. That's just
Yep.
But that's enough me ranting for right now.
I know we got to stop about that. We got to get through this game, and we got one more, I think. So
Yeah, we're on the home stretch there.
yeah, this
But
game there's just not much to it. It's
yeah, so two
worse.
0-4 teams. I have Paxton Lynch. He has some decent stats. They're not like the flashiest, but 690 passing yards, 60% completion, 4 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown to only 2 turnovers, 14 rushing yards for 52, 14 rushes for 52 rushing yards. Most of that coming in one game. He is he's doing okay. He's not excellent, but he's not at this point. He's not a liability. I think you can win with him. You just need other weapons around him. Cody
Yep.
Latimer is the best option at 20 catches for 29 targets, 220 yards, and 2 touchdowns. They just need more help around Paxton Lynch at this point. Vegas Vipers, I didn't put a quarterback just because I don't know what's happening with Brett Hundley. I don't know who's going to be the starter. So I didn't want to put both because I think only one's going to factor in. I just didn't know who to put. So I just left him off. Jeff Badditt, I think is how you say it. He's been excellent. 19 catches on 30 targets, 261 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's played well. This offense has played well. Luis Perez makes a lot of errors, but can still throw touchdowns. And Brett Hundley can make it happen on the ground and in the air. They have good weapons. Their run game has not been great, except with Brett Hundley, really. But they've got some solid quarterbacks, and they've got good wide receiver here in Jeff Badditt and someone else who I feel bad for forgetting. But they've got some good weapons. They can make stuff happen offensively.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, I picked defense. Both of them have some good corners. Mike Lee, 20 tackles, and not necessarily breaking up passes, but you see 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. Meanwhile, Adam Sparks, 22 tackles, 3 for loss, and an interception. The big thing that I think is going to be here is Bailey Giffen, worst kicker, only kicker missing less than 50% of his kicks, 4 of 9. He does have a 47-yard longest, which is not terrible, but also look at this, 3 of 6 from less than 40. So that's not, it's not like he's missing long ones. He's missing some chip shots.
Not good. I don't like when a kicker can't kick from 50, but that's a very bad percentage. So especially inside that range,
inside the 40, you should. I understand the miss here and there, but you're looking at you should be at least 90%.
Yeah,
even 90%, I think you'd be like, ooh, that's rough. But
all right,
the biggest thing here is
worst rush. Yeah,
they just have a terrible
defense.
They have no one else really in the back. That Jermaine Martin, who I talked about, was benched in that week 3 game when he had 9 yards on 7 carries and 2 fumbles. So they don't have a ton of faith in him, but who else are they going to put in? They don't have any secondary options. So, but the biggest thing that, as I point out with the Vegas, even with their offense, sometimes clicking, sometimes getting some good plays. They have not the worst passing rush, the worst rushing defense, and the second worst passing defense to allow 368 yards per game. Which, I mean, look at a lot of the quarterback stats. I think no quarterback is averaging over 300 yards per game. Most aren't even averaging 20 yards per game and 200 yards per game. So the fact that you can have a league where there's only one running back who's had over 100 yards on the ground in a game, and a league where I think maybe 1 or 2 quarterbacks have had over 300 passing yards in a game, and you can manage to allow 368 total yards a game, that's not good. Not good at all. So it might be, it's hard to say because you're looking at a team with a good offense but a bad defense, and a team with with a good offense but an awful defense, and a team with an awful offense and a decent defense. So what's going to happen?
Well,
my money would be on the Vipers, but
I agree.
Probably not going to be a fun game to watch.
No, exactly. Hold on a second.
All right.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll flip to the last game of the week, the only Sunday game This is going to be interesting. I don't know if this will be a great game. It could be because the Renegades have a legitimately great defense, and the Brahmas have shown potential. In the end, I think that this game on Thursday and the first game on Sunday, the Battlehawks game, are going to be the biggest ones of the week. And all these games are late. I guess they're on
Yeah.
because this one's in San Antonio and the last one's in Vegas, so they're on.
Right.
I guess they're on. Well, San Antonio's on Mountain Time, maybe, and I don't know. They're late games. The Battlehawks one is the only one that's on at a reasonable time.
Right.
But for preview wise, I didn't put a quarterback because both of the Drew Plitt and Kyle Sloter. I'll just go over that with the poor QB play. What I think is going to be important in this is, Drew Plitt started the first 2 games. Kyle Sloter started the last 2 games. They've had a 64.7 combined completion percentage, not bad. 621 passing yards, not great. 3 touchdowns, not great. 5 interceptions and 3 fumbles, very much not great. And it's not like they've been much of a factor on the ground with 12 carries for 39 rushing yards. And couple that with the fact, look, San Antonio has the 3rd best pass defense in the league, 193.8 yards allowed. Number 3 is not fantastic, but it's not bad either. You'll take that, especially against a team that's struggling to pass as it is. To me, I think biggest thing for the Brahmas is going to be Jack Cohn. You can see his stats, not the best, but he had a 3 passing touchdown game where he looked great. And then he's also had that game where he went 8 for 20 for 60 passing yards. It's hard to know what QB are you going to get. And at this point, I haven't heard any news, but is he even going to start?
That's a key question there too. At least they have a solid kicking game. It looks like so. That's if it comes down to a close game with field goals, they may have an advantage.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight that because I do think, you've got a Renegades team that has a great defense and also not a great offense. This could come down to a kicking duel, in which case John Parker Romo, only kicker to make a field goal 50 above, and he's 4 for 4 from 40 plus. He missed a little bit of a chip shot, but he's been consistent from deep and going against a tough defense where every point might matter. That's definitely important.
Yep.
I think a big thing here,
Definitely.
I put Sal Cannella, again, 22 catches for 26 targets. That's amazing percentage there. 181 receiving yards. He is a tight end, so he's not a deep threat. But when you've got some QBs that are struggling, having that safety blanket is very important. I put Will Hill again. He's a big name. A lot of tackles. He's got a sack and a tackle for loss. And then I think these are the top 2, maybe not top 2, but at least in the top 3 of tackles. On the Renegade side, you have Donald Payne, 15 solo tackles, 16 assisted tackles. He's got a sack and a fumble recovery. And then you've got Jordan Williams, 20 solo, 9 assisted tackles, and 4 tackles for losses. So you're going to see these kind of middle linebackers are dangerous.
Looking at the scores for these 2 teams in previous games, they're not going to score a lot of points. So the defense is probably going to rule again, and you're probably looking at a lower scoring slugfest in here.
Yep. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes.
So what about the key factors? We see the key factors. How do you see this game coming down to?
I do think that's why I highlighted John Parker Romo, not just because he definitely is the best kicker in the league, but you're looking at bad Renegades. I didn't talk about the Renegades defense. It's very good. Highlighting Donald Payne, Will Hill, they have a lot of big names and they've been producing. And just not a great offense going up against a good pass defense. I don't think the rushing defense is great, but Renegades haven't had a ton of hasn't had a great rushing game. So I think that it's going to come down to John Parker Romo, and I know I could have put him on here because he's good as well, but Taylor Russolino, also a former Battlehawk, he has a little bit of a boot on him as well. He hasn't hit a 50-yarder yet, but he did in the 2020 league. He's got a little bit more distance than some of the guys. I think it could very easily come down to a last-minute field goal, or just you have a kicker who misses one that he shouldn't have, and that could decide the game. I think you're going to see a defensive battle and a special teams battle.
Happens all the time. All right. So that's it. That's the preview for next week. So
yeah.
What else do we have for now tonight, Woopah?
Oh, that's all I got. I guess we can go through something really quick just for fun.
All right. Let's do it quick.
I'll just say this. Go through the preview. This game, Houston Roughnecks at the Sea Dragons. Who you got?
I think I will go with Houston on the road. They seem to be the best team in the South Division. So, or is it the North? Yeah, the South.
They're the South Division.
Yeah. Still going on the road. Sea Dragons. DiNucci's a turnover machine, so I'll still go with Houston.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think the smart decision is Houston, but because I'm feeling it, I think I'm going to go with the Sea Dragons just because they've got a lot of offensive weapons. Houston's defense is good. I don't know if it's great levels, and with this, I think the Sea Dragons might have the best offense in the league right now. Though, I mean, it's tough, really, because Houston, if they don't have the best one, they have the second best one. So honestly, I think you're probably closer to being right with the Houston winning, but I just want to go with the Sea Dragons because I think it's going to be a fun game tonight.
All right.
You got two high-powered offenses. I think you're going to see a lot of points.
All right. Well, that sounds good. Okay.
The next one, DC Defenders going against Battlehawks. Who you got?
I think I'll take the Battlehawks being at home. I think DC's lack of offense will finally catch up to them. So, playing a decent team. But then again, the weak rushing defense could hurt St. Louis. But home field advantage means something. You do have a quarterback that's more dependable throwing the ball. So I'd still go with St. Louis.
Yeah, this is the correct answer, sir.
Hey, all right. Good job.
I'm picking the Battlehawks. I think home field advantage is going to matter a lot. I think this could easily be a semifinal playoff preview. I think the Battlehawks have shown that they can stop the run. They also can't mess up stopping the run, so it's not a guarantee, but I think they can stop them. I think home field advantage will matter a lot, and this is going to be a supercharged game. Their previous matchup, there was a big fight at the end of the game. I think people are going to have something to say about that, and I think, when you're talking about emotions running high, the home team is definitely going to benefit from that. So I'm taking the Battlehawks.
All righty.
Battle of the last place teams.
Okay, Vipers. The Vipers. I'm just going to say because they have better offense than Orlando, and just that's not the battle of what do I even say about them? So I'll just take the Vipers at home.
Yeah, I'm taking the Vipers just because I think the Vipers have had some games where they've been in it or they've been close. The Guardians, I guess, did technically have a game where they were close. It was 9-10, but they still looked awful. At least like the Vipers game, they were close and it came down to last minute. They scored 22. I feel like the Vipers can score, and I don't think the Guardians can. Not much else to say besides that.
All right.
And last game, Renegades versus Brahmas. Who you get?
I'd probably go with the Renegades again because of defense. And not sure about Cone with those numbers, so it's that's 5 turnovers in 4 games. That's a lot from the quarterback. So I'd say go Arlington on that one.
Yeah, I think this is going to be tight. I'm going to go with the Brahmas just because I do think kicker makes a difference here. I think you're going to see a low-scoring game. I also just think I don't know who gets to start. I assume still Kyle Sloter, but at the very least, Jack Cohn has had some good games. He's also had some bad games, but he's had some good games. Plitt and Sloter haven't really had any good games. They've had bad games or games where they don't mess up too much. So I feel like in this game, Brahmas have the edge. So there we go.
Yeah, there you go. All right. And that concludes everything. Yay, Woopah. Great job. A lot of detail.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, anyway, that was the last 2 weeks and a preview for this week coming up in the XFL. Go back if you missed or you come in late. Go look at it again and check it out and see how it goes. With that, Woopah, thank you. I'm going to say thank you very much. Great hard work on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. A couple things here with show notes, channel notes here. Don't forget the tournament's going on right now. Monday night, Woopah and I will be back together to talk men's college basketball, 7 p.m. Eastern on Monday. So far, 2 upsets today with Virginia going down to Furman, and Princeton beating Arizona. So, hey, you never know what happens. The nightcap's looking kind of boring so far, but hey, there's still time to go and there's games tomorrow. So, but join us Monday night for that show. Also, a new show that we're going to roll out next Wednesday will be at the movies, and I'll have a guest, Daisy Blossom Flower Child. We're going to be looking at the Terminator movies, at least the early movies. So 1 and 2 primarily. I may touch on 3 a little because I actually kind of like 3, but anyway, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that publicly, but but it was one movie that gave us kind of like it said, Rise of the Machines, but I don't want to spoil what's coming up, but join us for that and help support Daisy and us, and just for a battle saw the battle of bad logos again, but just some time to do something a little bit different than Fortnite. And hey, appreciate all your support and everything, folks. We're up to 173 subscribers on the channel, so thank you all. Thank you for people that retweet. Thank you to my mods that are here, and just thank you for all the support that you've done and doing, and let's keep growing. Woopah, any final thoughts?
Not too many. Thanks to Brian Hepburn. I saw Chad in there.
Yep.
Yes, everyone who came by. Subscribe to Woopah Troopah. I'm not doing much right now, but I probably will at some point.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, go check them out there too. And I forgot to hold this up very long. So catch us on YouTube and Twitch. Watch all of our replays, including the interview with Raquel Briggs from the other night. Our Fortnite streams, which I need to go back and clip a lot of stuff. We've had some exciting explosions in gas stations lately, but you can find them on youtube.com. Some of them we find on twitch.tv, dadmanwalking55, and keep up with all the latest, going live streaming and everything else. dadmanwalking55 on Twitter is the best way to keep up with me. There may be a surprise stream in a little bit. I don't know. It depends on where I'm at with things when I'm done, and a long day tomorrow. So on that note, Woopah, thank you again. And yeah, I know you're still there, Woopah, but thank you again, Woopah, for all you did and all that hard work tonight. And thank you to everybody out.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for everybody that came by, chatted, participated, and hey, y'all have a great night, and we will catch you later. Bye.